children, providing companionship for the Earl's 13-year-old goddaughter Mary, and being often at the beck and call of the Earl's eccentric Aunt Alice, Lady Renee. Still, with her bedtime prayers said, tucked up in her four-poster bed, the chill taken off the sheets by the copper warming pan, Kitty sometimes found it impossible to stop the tears of self-pity running down her cheeks. It was alone in the quiet blackness of night that the stark reality of her existence became apparent and her future appeared most bleak. She would remain an indigent spinster for the rest of her life, relegated to family helper at best, social embarrassment at worst, which, according to the more acerbic of the Earl's friends and relatives, was more than Miss Aldershot deserved. But Kitty was only 18, and thus clung to the optimism of youth. She expected more from life, much more, particularly as she was a fair-haired, violet-eyed beauty. Her looking-glass did not lie. She was confident she would make any man an attractive wife, and an accomplished one at that. She could sew, embroider, play the pianoforte, paint in watercolours, and was considered an able conversationalist, showing an interest in public affairs by reading the news sheets and being an attentive listener to the dinner-table conversations between the Earl and his guests. Yet she did not want to be just any man's wife. She wanted to marry Mr. Tom Allenby. She had danced 2 dances with Mr. Allenby at the Salt Hendon masquerade ball, and from that night onward, she was as certain as morning followed night that he was the only man with whom she wished to spend the rest of her life. Such was her conviction. She had every expectation of receiving his proposal of marriage this Christmastide, and without ever exchanging a word or a letter on the subject with the gentleman in question. Kitty refused to entertain any difficulties. Most would suggest overwhelming odds to the fulfilment of this expectation. Not least the fact Mr. Allenby, as the brother of the Countess of Salt Hendon, was expected to make a great match. He was also a very wealthy young man, a member of Parliament for Hendon. As such, he could have his pick during the season of the flowering beauties who had a pedigree and dowry worthy of him. None of this deterred Kitty. She might not have discussed the possibility of a shared future with Mr. Allenby. How could they, surrounded as they always were with family and friends? But since the ball, they had been enough in each other's company to convince her there had developed between them a silent understanding of their feelings for each other. Kitty believed that all that was required for matters to progress from this silent understanding to a mutual avowal of feelings was for her to have a moment alone with Mr. Allenby. This would allow him to declare himself, and she would accept his offer. To ensure this, she intended to orchestrate an occasion. It would require all her ingenuity and planning, not least because, as a young unmarried girl, she was never alone. Kitty might be the Earl's penniless dependent, but, as the daughter of a baron, she was accorded all the protection and courtesy her birthright and her guardian's preeminent position in society demanded. She had been assigned a chaperone, the eccentric Lady Renee, in whose company she was expected to be at all times when not in the nursery or her own room, making her, in effect, her ladyship's shadow. Not only would she need to find an excuse to disengage herself from her ladyship's orbit, but a great deal would also depend on finding a quiet location within the Earl's Jacobean mansion for their meeting to occur. Her plan was becoming increasingly difficult, what with the mansion filling up with guests and family members staying for the holiday season, as well as with daily visits from local villagers, tenants, and owners of neighbouring estates, all coming to partake of the Salt Hendon's festive generosity. Undeterred, Kitty believed she might be able to use such Yuletide comings and goings to her advantage. For while the Earl and Countess entertained family members and visitors alike, there would be enough distraction to coax Mr. Allenby to slip away with her to an appointed place and at an allocated time, with servants and family, particularly the beady-eyed Lady Renee, none the wiser. As the daylight hours grew shorter and the temperature dropped even further, the large wood-panelled public rooms filled with the laughter and chatter of a multitude of guests. Yet Kitty was more than ever convinced that the Herculean task before her was within her powers to orchestrate. And then, into her life, stepped